Albert Einstein supposedly once called compound interest the most powerful force in the universe. It's on posters, in retirement seminars, in every finance influencer's opening slide. Here's the problem. There's no record he ever said it. Historians have gone looking, and the trail runs cold. So if the most quoted line in personal finance is fake, what else are we getting wrong about compound interest? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why the advice that made your parents' generation comfortable might not work the same way for you. And it's not because you're saving wrong. Let's start with why the idea is so seductive in the first place, because the math really is beautiful. You invest money at a 10% annual return. You don't just earn interest on what you put in. Next year, you earn interest on your original deposit plus the interest you already made. The year after that, you're earning on all of it again. Plot that on a graph, and it doesn't rise in a straight line. It curves, slowly at first, then sharply upward, almost vertical near the end. That shape is what makes the promise so compelling. Save a little, wait long enough, and the curve does the rest. You become a millionaire basically on autopilot. Picture someone who starts putting in $200 a month at age 25. At a steady 10% return, by the time they're 65, that account is worth well over $1 million. Almost none of that million came from the money they actually deposited. Most of it came from decades of interest earning interest on itself. That's the number that gets quoted at every seminar. And it's not wrong, it's just incomplete. To understand why that curve works at all, picture landing alone on an empty, resource-rich desert island. In year 1, you clear some ground and plant a farm. By year 2, that farm produces more food than you can eat, so the surplus buys you free time you spend building better tools. By year 3, better tools mean you can build a stronger shelter, maybe even a small workshop. Every year, what you built the year before makes next year's work easier. And there's always another patch of unclaimed land past the tree line, waiting for you to clear it. Your capacity compounds because there is always more empty space, more untouched resource, more room to expand into. Nothing you claim takes anything away from anyone else because you're the only person on the island. Compounding, in this world, is a story about creation. You're not taking a bigger slice of a fixed pie, you're baking a bigger pie every single year. That desert island is the hidden assumption baked into every compound interest chart you've ever seen. And it's where the story starts to fall apart, first for you personally, then for the economy as a whole. Here's the personal problem. Financial influencers love to show you a chart where your net worth climbs steadily from age 20 to age 70, a smooth exponential curve, just like the desert island farm. But that's not how an actual human life works. Real household wealth doesn't look like a rising curve. It looks like a bell. In your 20s, you typically start below zero. Student debt, maybe a car loan, first apartment costs eating anything you'd otherwise save. In your 30s and 40s, if you're lucky, you start putting money away. But that's exactly when the biggest expenses of your life show up. Kids, a bigger mortgage, childcare that can cost more than a second salary some months. Then you hit retirement, and something the influencer graph never shows happens. You stop earning entirely. Compounding doesn't just slow down at that point, it runs in reverse. The pile you spent 30 years building gets drawn down month by month to cover rent, groceries, health costs, and, near the very end, the kind of long-term care that can drain a lifetime of savings in just a few years. Most people never compound their way into being millionaires. They compound just enough to survive their own retirement, and plenty of people die with a net worth close to zero. The bell curve rises, peaks somewhere in your 50s or 60s, and comes right back down toward the line it started at. And that's the best case version of the story. For a growing share of working people, the starting gate never even opens. Wages have been essentially flat for years, while rent, groceries, and energy bills have not stopped climbing. Picture a worker whose paycheck, on paper, buys the same groceries it did 5 years ago, but the rent on that same apartment has gone up 40%. When there's nothing left over at the end of the month, there's nothing to compound. You can have perfect financial discipline, track every expense, cut every latte, and still be locked out of this entire system from day one, because the math only works if you have surplus income to feed it. No surplus, no curve, no matter how patient you are. Think about two friends who graduated the same year. One lands a job with no debt, low rent, and starts investing at 23. The other graduates with 6 figures of student loans, moves to a city where half their paycheck goes to rent, and doesn't have a single dollar of surplus until their mid-30s. On paper, both of them believe in compound interest. Only one of them ever actually gets to use it. The gap between those two lives isn't explained by discipline or financial literacy. It's explained by which side of the surplus line you happened to land on before you even opened a brokerage account. So the individual case is already shaky. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Even if every single person did everything right, saved diligently, invested wisely, avoided debt, compound interest still couldn't work for everyone at once. And that's because of the desert island problem again, this time at the scale of an entire country. Remember, the island math only works because there's endless unclaimed land to expand into. Now look at a mature, developed economy, like the United States or the United Kingdom. Almost every acre of usable land is already owned. Every efficient business idea has already been tried by someone with more capital than you. There is no empty island left to homestead. And when there's nowhere left to expand into, national economic growth slows down. Real growth in developed economies has been crawling along at somewhere between 1% and 3% a year for a long stretch now. Here's the number that should stop you. The wealthiest people, the ones who already own large amounts of capital, keep compounding their wealth at closer to 5% a year, year after year, decade after decade. So ask the obvious question. If the whole economic pie is only growing by 1% to 3%, but the richest slice of it is growing by 5%, where is that extra growth actually coming from? You'd assume it has to come from somewhere new, but the math says otherwise. It's not coming from new value being created out of thin air, the way it did on the desert island. Someone who's actually spent real money trying to fund new, productive businesses will tell you plainly, it's brutally hard to make that pay off, because the average consumer simply doesn't have spare income left to spend on anything new. Try to build a factory or launch a product, and you run straight into a customer base with no disposable income. So instead, capital flows towards something safer and far more predictable, buying up assets that already exist. Real estate, public company stock, farmland, gold. Assets with a fixed, limited supply, where the return doesn't depend on some ordinary family having spare cash to spend. This is the part that should actually worry you. The ultra-wealthy aren't expanding the pie anymore. They're outbidding everyone else for the pieces of pie that already exist. Every dollar of that 5% compounding has to come from somewhere, and increasingly, it comes from bidding up the price of the same finite stock of houses, shares, and land that the middle class was counting on to build their own future. The rich aren't just growing their own wealth faster than the economy, they're growing it by slowly absorbing wealth that used to belong to everyone else. It's not villainous in the cartoon sense. It's just what rational capital does once the frontier closes and there's no new island left to settle. And here's where it gets genuinely sneaky, because the middle class ends up cheering for its own squeeze. When all that capital pours into existing assets, prices for things like housing don't rise gently, they spike. And homeowners watch their house value jump by 50% and feel richer. They talk about it at dinner like they earned something, like their smart choices made that number go up. But that's not wealth creation. That's asset inflation. And it's a trap dressed up as good news, because that same house is now far harder for their own kids to ever buy. There's an old story that captures this perfectly. Esau, from the book of Genesis, trading away his entire birthright, his long-term inheritance, for a single bowl of soup because he was hungry right now. That's exactly what's happening every time a middle-class family celebrates a 50% jump in their home's paper value. They're cheering for a system that permanently prices their own kids and grandkids out of ever affording a home of their own. The soup tastes great today. The birthright is gone for good, and nobody in that kitchen even noticed the trade happen. So where does this actually end if nothing changes? If wealth keeps compounding at the top, while overall growth stays stuck near 1 to 3%, the middle class doesn't just shrink a little. Over enough decades, it gets hollowed out entirely. You end up with the kind of lopsided society history has already shown us plenty of times before. A small number of extremely wealthy families at the very top, and a very large population underneath with essentially nothing, permanently priced out of owning anything that matters. Not a home, not a business, not a meaningful stake in the economy they work in every day. This isn't a problem that gets fixed by saving harder, or picking better stocks, or cutting one more subscription. Individual discipline can't out-compound a structural imbalance that's built into the architecture of a finite economy. The only real lever that changes the math is policy. A tax system that actually taxes extreme accumulated wealth at the top and takes real pressure off ordinary working people who are already stretched thin just covering rent and groceries. That's not a radical idea. It's just recognizing that when the pie stops growing fast enough for everyone, how it gets divided starts to matter a whole lot more than how fast any single person's slice compounds. So the next time someone tells you compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe, ask them the follow-up question this video just answered. Powerful for who? If this changed how you think about your own money or your kids' future, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, do you think your generation will end up richer than your parents or poorer? I read every single one.